So, folks, we got to talk about the fact that I think it's deeply weird that in the course of two Trump presidencies, we've just become numb or used to the idea of presidents and vice presidents profiting off of their positions while they're currently in office. I think it's weird, right? Like, for example, this clip going around today of Senator Kevin Kramer here on Fox News.
I mean, look, we're talking about the rewards issue.
That's right.
But that's not the only issue holding this up, right? Democrats want to ban government employees, including the president and his family, from crypto endeavors. The president's not going to back that. We know that. Law enforcement interests are...
Gee whiz. Hey, I wonder why the president wouldn't back a bill that prohibits himself and his family from enriching themselves using insider knowledge. I want does that very comment where you're like, of course he's not going to support that. Does that not speak to the very reason why this legislation might be needed to bar him from using his office to personally enrich himself? I wonder.
Are raising objections to some provisions related to money laundering as well.
Right. Yeah, that's true, and we want to take care of the money laundering piece of it. I think we've done a pretty good job of it. Maybe we have to tighten things up a little bit more with regard to the ethics piece of it. One of the things that Democrats are never going to accept, and that is that we have a business person as the president of the United States. He didn't come up through the ranks.
Oh, yeah. That's the problem Democrats have isn't with the fact that government officials are using their positions and power to enrich themselves and their families. No. The problem is they're just really mad about business people. I feel actually dumber having heard that. The idea that people just don't care about political corruption and instead they're just very big mad about business people being in politics is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. Business people. Like, for fuck's sake, I think it's like it's not difficult. People are sick to death of, political corruption. What we're talking about here is the most basic kind of bill to stop political corruption. And this guy's just like, nah, they just hate business people. Political corruption to Republicans is just doing business now. It's literally the most corrupt thing. We've gone from we've gone to the point where a major political party is coming out as a point of policy and saying, like a fucking mobster, that's just business. That's crazy. How can people not see through this bullshit?
He wasn't a state legislator or a bureaucrat or even a member of Congress. They're always going to have extra scrutiny on the Trump family, but we shouldn't not move forward with pro-growth, pro-business policies just because it might benefit the president's family because they're in business. I mean, they're largely in the White House because they were successful.
It's not just the president. It's all people in a position of public office. That would be objectively a good thing to bar people who've been elected to represent the people from using and abusing that trust to enrich themselves.
They're successful business people. So I sort of reject that whole idea that somehow Donald Trump has to be exempt from being successful.
Well, a lot of, look, we're...
Like, this made me pretty upset earlier. Like, again, this is why we need to get money out of politics. This is why every state in the country, you need to be getting involved with your local Democratic Party, your local DSA, whatever organizing apparatus you feel comfortable. You should be organizing with other people specifically to get Montana Plan initiatives on the legislative docket for the upcoming season. Because what needs to happen is every state needs to pass laws prohibiting businesses that want to act in the state from giving and contributing to different political campaigns. Full stop. This is one of the ways we can end the damage that is being done in an ongoing fashion by Citizens United. We can use the state power to oversee commerce and business to actually put a stop to this kind of political chicanery. right? And so it's one of the reasons we need to be getting organized, whether or not like we are fully amenable to getting organized within the Democratic Party or your local DSA. We need to be doing whatever we can to organize in this way. Now, in a very similar manner, J.D. Vance has written a book and is currently doing a book tour as Vice President of the United States. We are now in a situation where the Vice President, who is currently the Vice President, it's not like a former Vice President writing a memoir or something, the current Vice President wrote a memoir and is now doing a fucking book tour to sell his goddamn book. And I just have to say, he got elected to do shit in this country. He got elected to a position of supreme public trust, and he's using that time and that trust to tour the country to shill his book. And I find this deeply distasteful just on the surface level of it. But there is another part of me that does find it very funny, because, of course, this also means J.D. Vance has to go into the lion's den, one of the most dangerous political places on earth for Republican politicians. And of course, I'm talking about The View.
For 29 seasons, this show has invited thousands of guests with all kinds of diverse points of view. And we have been asking our next guest to join us for a while now. So we're glad that he's taken us up on the offer today. Please welcome author of the new book, Communion, Finding My Way Back to Faith.
Just as an aside about this particular book, I've talked about it in the past, but what's very funny is that J.D. Vance uses a picture of, I believe, a Presbyterian church on the cover of Communion. J.D. Vance is a Catholic. He's not a Protestant. He is a Catholic. That's a completely unrelated church that J.D. Vance has no connection to on the cover of his book. And I find that to be very funny. Also, of course, J.D. Vance hates the Pope and thinks that he knows more about the religion of Catholicism than the fucking Pope, which is very, very funny considering Catholics believe that the Pope is the closest you can get to God on earth. So, yeah.
Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance.
Wow, look at him. Wow. It's our big charismatic boy. Everyone loves J.D. Vance. Everyone loves him. We all love J.D. Vance, don't we, folks? Yay! Yay! I very much appreciate this. Let's get to it. Why would The View ever want JD on their show and vice versa? Excellent question. And that's because the vast majority of the women on The View want to basically treat JD Vance as a fucking pinata while cameras catch their interaction with him. All right? That's... Oh
my god, he's gonna asterisk the View couch.
Oh god. You know, the good news is there's not any couches on the on this set. He'd have to climb up the stairs. I think there are some up top. Like, it looks like maybe they got a couple love seats up there. They got to keep them safe. That's why they put them all the way up there. God.
Table of big heads here.
So this is a show of MAGA Republicans, right? That's what my media team told me. Okay, good.
Well,
wow, how charming how charming he is. Look at how disarming he is.
We'll find out. I think you have the first question, Alyssa.
Yes, Mr. Vice President, thank you for being.
Love finds a way.
Love seats find a way.
with us. Now, you came into office with clear momentum, but when I talk to my friends and family who supported you and the president and still support you and the president, one issue comes up time and time again, and it's the economy. Inflation's up, wages are down, gas prices are starting to drop at news of this Iran deal, which we will get to.
Sure.
What can you say to voters who trusted you to lower costs on day one, and will they be satisfied by November?
Like, genuinely, what the fuck? Like, genuinely, that was a great question. Like, I know people, like, will rake the View over the coals, and I know they got issues. They are not, like, far leftists, like MAGA likes to claim. But, like, that was genuinely a harder question than most of the mainstream press has been asking J.D. Vance or Donald Trump for years now. It's genuine, like, they're genuinely posing harder questions. Like, so to start off with, JD Vance, do you think that your betrayal will still be remembered come November?
Well, I think that's ultimately up to the voters, right? I think voters have every right to expect as much as possible out of their elected representatives. We certainly know.
Oh God, wait, is sorry, I just noticed. Is JD Vance doing like the Donald Trump strategy? Is JD Vance like oranging himself? Like, seriously, compare his complexion to the orange-hued tree in the background behind him. It's almost 1 for 1. He is very orange. Oh my God, he's trying so hard to be Donald Trump. Oh, he's trying so hard.
That we were elected on a number of mandates. One was to close the border, which I think we've done successfully, exceeded expectations there. Number 2 was to lower prices, and there's a lot of work to do, in large part because of what's happened over the last few months in the Middle East. But as you said, oil, which got up to $120 a barrel, now is at $80 a barrel. That's going to be reflected in lower fuel, lower food, lower energy prices. But
well, so caveat to that, right? Which is that the Iran war has gone on for so long that it has reshaped the global logistical supply lines, right? Which means that prices aren't necessarily going to be quick to come down, especially not prices on things like food, right? Gas prices might react more to what's happening here, but it's very likely that the price hikes we've experienced in average everyday goods are not going to be so quick to come down. Right? Because all of that profit gets now to be kept by the corporations who hike their prices on basic everyday goods. Yeah, prices experience what's known as like a certain stickiness, right? And so we have all of that, plus the fact that a lot of industries that relied on the material shipped through the Strait of Hormuz, it takes time to like get those factories and smelters back up and running again. You can't just flick a switch and have it all work perfectly again. You can't just, bring back all of the people who've been put out of work for months in order to like make the things flow again out of these factories. So when he's talking about like, oh, well, prices will now come down, I don't think they are. And I'm not entirely sold on the idea that consumer goods in particular are going to be cheaper come November, by and large. And what I find interesting about this is that I think that like by positioning JD Vance to do his book tour at this particular moment in time, there is an element here where I think they might be trying to throw JD Vance under the bus as if he's the guy who like made the deal, and like any of the ire around the Iran deal, I think the Trump administration is going to try and put on JD Vance's shoulders. I think he's going out there right now and he's going to take the absolute majority of the heat for anything that everyone is finding lacking in the deal. And we're going to talk about what is in that Iran deal, by the way, later on in tonight's show. But suffice it to say, in this particular moment, it amounts to a full surrender of the United States to Iran. It is arguably one of the greatest strategic defeats of the United States since Vietnam, and possibly like going beyond that. Like it is bad for the United States.
There's a lot more work to do. The thing that I'm proudest about most, because as some of you may know, I grew up in one of these towns that was forgotten by the leaders in Washington of both parties, is that you're seeing, that's Middletown, Ohio. That's my hometown in southwestern Ohio. It was a proud steel town. I was raised by a grandfather who was a union steel worker, is that those jobs disappeared.
Oh man, like you can see it. You can see it in what he's doing right now. He's going out there and saying, like, hey, look at me. I'm a working class individual just like you. I grew up in a union steel town. And it's like, you literally hate unions. You would cut off your right arm if it meant like unions just ceased to exist. You'd pull some Full Metal Alchemist shit if it meant you could just end all unions.
Those factories closed down. The thing that I'm most excited about is you do see a large amount of capital investment coming into our country. Factories being built, construction jobs are way up, manufacturing jobs are starting to catch up. So there's a lot more work to do. I think that we're making progress, but ultimately we're going to make our pitch to the voters in November, and they're the ones who get to decide whether we've done a good job or not, and that's how they're going to vote.
Okay.
Hell, I've personally saved multiple furniture factories. I bought massive numbers of them, and they were all sitting, I call them my girls, they're all sitting in a warehouse just outside of the central DC area. And I visit them every so often, keep them from getting too dusty, if you know what I'm saying. And I'm just a simple country boy who loves himself a good couch, a good love seat.
Yeah. So President Trump has called affordability a hoax.
God, if this ends with them giving him a new couch, that would be extraordinarily funny. More people should be taking the piss out of JD Vance like that. More people should, like, they should genuinely present him with a new presidential couch. It would, like, they wouldn't even have to make any jokes about it. Just the act of giving him a couch would be devastating. It would be, I think genuinely it could end his entire career, right? It could genuinely just end his hope at running for president ever again.
He said that, not me.
Listen, Peter Thiel's doing his best pumping money into this guy. Well, the problem is, Peter Thiel can pump all the money he wants into JD Vance, but JD Vance keeps pumping all that money directly into all his couches.
He's pouring money into this ballroom of his and the reflecting pool. Oh, don't forget the Arch de Trompe, I call it, and a White House cage match.
Girl, that was your best effort. Your best effort was like the Arch de Trompe. Liberals need better material.
All these things. Why is he doing them when you just, everybody knows that Americans are struggling? What is he spending all this money for?
Well, I got to defend the president on the hoax point. What the president said is the idea that Republicans caused the affordability problem is a hoax. And I think that's true. If you go back...
That's not what he said.
Jade's favorite upholstery color is Peter Thiel.
You know, we actually have some real testimony from one of JD Vance's couches, actually. And some people might not believe it, but sometimes you can actually, if you listen very closely, you can hear what different objects have to say about how they're treated by the people around them. And we were actually able to obtain this recording from his couch.
Hey, you know what? You know when it's really fun to be railed animalistically by a man who loves you?
It's true. It's true.
Back to the Biden administration, inflation got up to 9% under the Biden administration, okay? Right now it's at 3%.
Also, again, the inflation under the Biden administration was largely due to, again, COVID shit. It was still recovering from COVID. Like, that was why we had massive inflation.
0.5%. By the way, too high. We're doing everything that we can to bring it back down to 2.5%, which is where most people would like to see it. But we inherited an affordability problem. We're doing a lot to make it better. It's going to take a little bit of time. There's a lot more work to do. But the president knows that a lot of Americans are struggling. In fact, he ran on that. He talked about it. And we've done some things and made some good progress on that point.
Like what? What have you done to make things cheaper for the average American? Genuinely. I can't think of anything that the Trump administration did that helps average working Americans at all. I can think maybe like I gotta be honest, any of the things that the Trump administration may have done are vastly outweighed by the massive spikes in prices to oil and diesel that then made everything else more expensive. Whatever the Trump administration has done, like the tariffs and then the Iran war, completely wipes that out and has made it actively harder for people.
He just said he loves the inflation.
What he said, Anna, what he said is that he loves the fact that the inflation is going to come down when this war is over. That's what he said.
That's not what he said.
Oh my God, they are fucking railing him, absolutely destroying him. Let's play the actual clip. Did he qualify it?
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No, I love it.
for
The numbers were
Republicans
great.
to
You know what I
hold
really
the House
love?
and Senate?
I love the inflation. You know why? Because as soon as this war is over, you know, I can say it now. Something you didn't know. Do you know we've been taking out millions of barrels of oil? Nobody knows it. You know who doesn't know about it? Iran, until right now. And I said, you know, the bad part is the stock market will go down by a lot based on predictions of experts, like 25%. And it was worth it. To me, it was worth it, not to have a nuclear weapon. And the other thing is that oil would go to $250 a barrel. It's at 85.
Can you inflation to come down between now and
when
November?
the war is over?
Yes.
It's coming down.
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No, I love it.
for
The
Republicans
numbers were
in terms of
great.
trying
The numbers were great. No, they weren't. The numbers were very bad. The numbers were very bad. And JD Vance is desperately trying to spin it, but like, keep in mind, he's basically in a killing zone right now. And they're genuinely firing bullets at him here, like political bullets.
Wasn't it
That's
Are you
not
his,
what he
wait,
said,
are you
but
his
that's
interpreter or are you his vice president? Come on.
Well,
Oh man, the fucking fake laughter. He's getting cooked.
look. What the president said. People were asking about the inflation. They were asking about the affordability problem, which again is very real. And what he said is, "I love the inflation because it's going to come down when the war is over." And now, again, we already see gas.
He said that later. In fact, there is a fact check over on CNN already. What he said was he loves the fact that inflation is going to come down. We went back and reviewed Trump's full remarks from the event in which he said, "I love inflation." The video shows that Goldberg was correct. Trump didn't say what Vance said he claimed. Trump frequently delivers rambling, hard to parse remarks. You can just say incoherent. You can just say incoherent, actually. A reporter asked Trump if he's concerned about the inflation number that was released that morning and whether it could be a headwind. The Consumer Price Index report published that day for May showed prices has gone up 4.2% since May of 2025. Those are not good inflation numbers.
Gas prices today, $4.06 a gallon, too high, but way down from where they were just a couple of weeks ago. So there's a lot we got to do, but I think that we're doing as much as we can.
Thanks,
we're going to keep
what?
on working at it. And again, the American people are going to make their verdict, but I think that we have a very credible case to run on, that we brought a lot of new investment. We're building the factories. That is going to pay serious dividends for the American.
I want JD Vance to list a single goddamn factory that's
What
getting
the
built.
president meant. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Why didn't he say that then? Why are you filleting that idiot?
You look like a bitch.
It's true. It's true. But like, that's the thing, right? Donald Trump has reached a level of incoherence where basically any conservative, any MAGA person who watches it just like projects what they want him to mean onto him. Like, it's just nonsense. Like, to be very clear, he's saying effectively nonsense vibes. But the vibes seem correct to Republicans, and then Republicans just like will it to mean something even remotely sounding plausible. It's crazy. But Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Why didn't he say it then? Because he literally can't, because his brain is mush.
People over the long haul.
When?
Well, Joy, if you look at manufacturing jobs,
I just want JD Vance to list like one factory that's actually getting built in the United States, because companies are not reshoring jobs. That's not happening with the policies the Trump administration has in place. People are just eating the tariffs, and then the tariffs are being passed on to customers. That's it. That's all that's happening right now.
Okay.
those jobs are increasing at a large number. Construction jobs are doing a little bit better. So what happens is the construction jobs to build the factories, and then the manufacturing workers go back to work. That also leads to rising wages. That's one of the things that I'm very proud of, is if you look at the amount that wages are going up now compared to, say, 2022, they're going up way faster. That's a good thing. You know, the affordability problem. Again, gas, way too high right now. Certain things way too high. You know, rents have been either flat or down for 12 months now.
I don't think that's true at all. Wait a minute. How many factories have been reshored in the US 2025? Well, that's interesting. So just as an FYI, here's from the IoT analytics. As far as, hey, don't worry, guys, they're reshoring all of the factories. They're building so many more factories. Don't worry, guys, the jobs are going to come. I swear they're going to happen. Here's from the U.S. Census Bureau. Since Liberation Day tariffs, the amount of money spent on manufacturing has gone down by 16%. We aren't reshoring companies. We aren't reshoring factories. We're actively building fewer of them because of this. Also, manufacturing labor has declined by 1% since Liberation Day tariffs. Crazy. I live in one of the cheapest places in my city, and rent still goes up each time I renew my lease. Yeah, like, I gotta be honest, I'm not sure where he's getting his data on rent going down. U.S. rent prices average by year. Let's just take a quick look. I want a nice little graph. Well, I think that JD Vance might be full of horse shit on this one. Here's NerdWallet. Rent still rising, still lagging behind inflation as gas prices spike. The latest Consumer Price Index report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics released on May 12th shows that in April, the shelter index, 3.3%, which includes rent, continues to lag behind the annual inflation rate of 3.8%. The disparity is due to the overwhelming spike in energy, plus 17.9%, specifically the gasoline index, up 28.4%, which is pushing up overall inflation. Cool stuff. Oh, it's worth noting that rent increases in the CPI look different from data reported by rental websites like Zillow and Redfin because there's a lag in how rent data is reflected in the CPI. That means it takes longer for rental shifts in the market to show up in the report.
So there are things that are showing signs of life, things that are showing signs of progress. My view, I'm sure you guys don't agree with it, is that we inherited a mess and we're fixing it. But sometimes it takes a long time to fix a mess.
Sonny.
Okay. Mr. Vice President, according to a new report from the New York Times, you were the leading voice behind the scenes to release the Epstein files. And we...
Oh, fuck. This, by the way, again, this question comes days after the New York Times released an excerpt from an upcoming Maggie Haberman book that was so scarily accurate to Trump White House aides that they think there may have been a recording device somehow planted in the Situation Room of the White House, where apparently JD Vance led talks on how they were going to cover up for Donald Trump. And there's some choice quotes. JD Vance took a leading role in trying to cover up Trump's involvement in the Epstein files and how to properly spin it to the public. And what a devastating question to ask just days after that reporting.
I applaud you for that. And you warned top officials, including top DOJ officials at strategy meetings taking place inside the Situation Room. We understand that there are tapes of those meetings, that this was a huge problem for the base.
Why my gas prices grow up? I don't know. Sounds like you're the kind of voter who doesn't really much care for people growing up. Kind of MAGA voter who actively roots for the president who's in the Epstein files.
The report says you even floated having Tucker Carlson interview Ghislaine Maxwell to clear the president's name, but you were rebuffed by your people. Why?
Well, I'd say, first of all, don't believe everything that you read in any newspaper, whether it's a right-leaning paper or a left-leaning paper, because as you guys know, well, there...
Well, first of all, I would never be worried that my president is involved in the Epstein files, even though he's withholding millions of documents that are supposed to be released by now. So don't believe everything you read. Ha 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 ha.
There are things that are true, things that are false, and things that are totally missing context. Well, here's what I'll say. So, number one, I am, frankly, kind of a conspiracy theory on the Epstein stuff, and that story says that that's one of the things that's true.
You're the fucking vice president. You are the one in charge of, like, conspiracy theories. What are you talking about? Like, you as vice president of the United States have clearance on par with the president. Like, you cannot be a conspiracy theorist while also having access to the actual information available at the highest levels of security. What are you talking about? I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist about what's really in the JFK assassination files, says guy who's literally able to access any and all of the files. What are you talking about? I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist when it comes to the Epstein files. You, sir, you have access to all of the Epstein files. You literally could go and look at all of them right now. You could go and look at them and release them right now, as legally the federal government is supposed to do. But you don't. It begs the question, why?
Is that some people called me a conspiracy theory on the Epstein stuff.
Some people called me a conspiracy theory. That's not... People aren't calling you a conspiracy theory, man. They're calling you a couch fucker. Get it right.
And I love Susie, but absolutely, she thinks I'm a conspiracy theorist on the Epstein stuff because I think that it's crazy that you had this guy who is clearly a sex predator who is hanging out with a lot of very wealthy and powerful people like that.
Yeah, you know, you have this guy who's hanging out with a lot of wealthy and powerful people, and you know, let me just look something up real quick. Epstein, Peter Thiel.
He thought there was two cyber companies. Look out, and even though I know Peter, I've never met Peter Thiel, and everybody says he sort of jumps around and acts sort of strange, like he's on drugs.
Smoking, yeah. He looks under drugs.
However, he has a company called Palantir. Pallen. Tier. Palantir is Peter Thiel's company. And look out.
Palantir, Palantier?
Yes.
How you write Thiel? Thiellly?
Thiel.
Yeah. LLY?
No. Thiell.
Okay.
So he thought that Peter would put you on the board of Palantir. Peter Thiel is one of the best. I've never met him. He's going to come here next week. So I wanted to talk to him after I talked to you.
Okay.
He and Andreessen, it's called Andreessen Horowitz. Andreessen Horowitz, that's what they pay Larry $1 million a year. Just to advise them.
Andreas and?
Andreessen, Andreessen, and Horowitz.
And Howard?
Horo, Horowitz.
Ah, Horowitz.
Yes.
What they are? It's a lobbyist. What they are?
They are the biggest venture capital people in Silicon Valley.
What, bigger than Sequoia or Kleiner Perkins?
These are the new Kleiner Perkins. Everybody, these are the smart boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, that's Jeffrey Epstein chatting with Ehud Barak. talking about how he's going to go meet with Peter Thiel tomorrow, and how interested he is in Palantir, and how he should hook up Ehud Barak with, Mark Andreessen. Andreessen, by the way, and Peter Thiel being huge conservative billionaire backers of Donald Trump and Donald Trump's administration. And Peter Thiel, in particular, being a very close benefactor to J.D. Vance. In fact, a lot of people throughout J.D. Vance's entire career have called him J.D. Vance's, Peter Thiel's man in Congress and now in the White House. So this idea that I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist about Jeffrey Epstein. No, you're not. You take money directly from one of Jeffrey Epstein's associates. Your career is by and large a construct of one of Jeffrey Epstein's associates. You swim in a pool of money drained into you by Jeffrey Epstein's associates. This idea here that I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist. If you are indeed a conspiracy theorist, you are in on the conspiracy, my friend. You're one of the key pawns.
Really bothered me. I don't know what's there, of course. Nobody knows exactly what happened unless you were there, but that really bothered me, and I wanted to have full transparency. What I disagree with is the idea that the White House wasn't committed to full transparency. We have to remember, I was inside the room when some of these decisions were made. The Epstein Files Transparency Act, the one that the president signed, the one that led to all these files that we're seeing, the emails. By the way, again, sorry, do I have to defend my boss? I know you guys don't always appreciate this, but one of the things you see in the Epstein emails is that Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump.
Yeah, but also, we don't see all of the emails, do we?
I solved the clue mystery. It was Peter Thiel, on the island, with the massage table.
Whoa. You got it, Sake Tanuki. Thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. I appreciate it. But the thing is, you're going to defend Donald Trump. Donald Trump is still sitting on millions of Epstein documents that should have been released to the public. You cannot defend him when he is deliberately withholding information and documents that he signed into law he needed to turn over to the public. You cannot defend him. I mean, frankly, the only way you can defend him, if you insist on doing so, is by essentially putting yourself in bed with a fucking alleged pedophile. It's truly disgusting stuff.
JD the Leaker.
Well, and Starch Manning, first of all, thank you for the $5 super chat, but also, I don't even know that I don't think JD Vance is leaking this stuff, because it's all hugely damaging, because it's associated with him and his run. My theory is that Marco Rubio is leaking all of this shit. Because Marco Rubio knows that whatever shit is leaked about Donald Trump, it sticks to J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance is his primary rival, Marco Rubio's primary rival in a 2028 Republican primary matchup, right? This is, by the way, one of the reasons why I think one of the internal sources that is leaking like a sieve right now is Marco Rubio. Little micro Rubio, indeed. But I think that's what's happening right now.
And that Donald Trump literally reported Jeffrey Epstein to the police. That's one of the things that came out of these files.
They were best friends for about a decade. And remember, he signed that Transparency Act under duress when some Republican women, congresswomen like Lauren Boebert, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, did not give in to his pressure of not signing. He brought Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room to...
Also, just real quick.
True. They all hate Trump. Maybe Susie?
I don't get the impression Susie Wiles is leaking. I think it's Marco Rubio and likely some of the aides around them as well. The knives are officially out right now, Maybe Susie Wiles.
Mike Rubio is the dirtiest job of all.
Mike Rao Rubio. That's fucking good, Sake. Thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Mike Rao, that's fucking great. Wordplay, I love it.
Into his pressure.
The defense that JD Vance is trying to run here. Oh, well, Trump called the authorities on Epstein. Trump did that years after knowing that Epstein was sexually assaulting children. For years. Epstein was an unofficial, unpaid member of Mar-a-Lago, instructed, and the staff were instructed to treat Epstein as a full member for years. They went to the same parties. They knew the same women and girls. There are multiple eyewitness testimonies to both of them acting very, very weird around very young teens. This is, like, I gotta be honest. The idea to, like, well, eventually Trump called the FBI. Trump called the FBI after they had their falling out. After they were no longer besties.
Of not signing. He brought Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room to pressure her into caving on not voting for that bill.
So let me respond to that. So
That's all true.
Let me respond to that. So number one is, yes, Donald Trump, and he said this, he knew Jeffrey Epstein back in the 1980s. He also threw Jeffrey Epstein out of his club when he found out he was a creep and reported him to the police. That's something that the media often misses when it reports this story.
He did not do this.
Trump called the FBI after Epstein was poaching talent from him.
Yeah, that's literally what Donald Trump said. Here it is. He stole people who worked for me, which is not how I would term sexually assaulted children. And also, worth questioning, hey, Donald Trump, why did you have a 16-year-old working at your private club to provide massages for adults? Like, I don't know, seems kind of like you may have been on board with this entire endeavor. To me, this is far from exculpatory.
The fact that they knew each other in the 80s, which the president himself admits, they ignore the fact that he narked on him to the police and led ultimately to JeffreyEpstein's downfall. To that point, Anna, the Republican Party. Well, it's one of the things that led to law enforcement investigation. But on the point that you made,
it was allegedly over a real estate deal that they got into a fight over.
But the email says actually
they didn't just know each other. Let's just be truthful and transparent here. They didn't just know each other. They were incredibly close friends.
He reported him to the police. That's what I'm saying. That is objective. That is objectively true. But Anna made another point that I think I would be if I may, because Anna made a very important point. This question about did Donald Trump.
Also, worth noting, if we want to take this at face value, let's take a look at what that phone call constituted, huh? Ex-police chief said Trump told him in 2006 everyone knew of Epstein's behavior. Oh, that's fascinating. This is from the BBC. A former Florida police chief said he received a call from Donald Trump in 2006 in which the now president told him everyone knows about Jeffrey Epstein's behavior, according to an FBI document released by the Justice Department. Now, what is interesting here, Trump says, thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this. That would also mean that Donald Trump had known for a while that everyone knows that Jeffrey Epstein has been doing this.
This feels more like heel value over face value.
Socket Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs, but like, holy shit. I do not know how conservatives can justify supporting either of these two people, right? Like, even with the story about, oh, he called a local police chief and talked about it, in that telling of the story, he is implying that he has known for quite some time as Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, the guy who partied with him more than any other, the guy who was talking about how they both love girls on the younger side. He knew. He fucking knew.
Release these files only under duress from Republicans. And Anna, you know the Republican Party probably better than I do. The idea that Donald Trump runs around afraid of Republican congressmen as opposed to the other way around is kind of crazy.
What was a bipartisan? It was Republicans and Democrats.
But because the Republicans control the House and the Senate, particularly the Senate, you need the Republican sign-off. What the president did is, look, I will say this. Again, I was in there in the meetings. He was very frustrated that the Democrats were making this about him when he's like, look, I threw the guy out of my club. I am the guy who reported him to the police, or one of the people who reported him to the police. The president was frustrated about that, absolutely. But he eventually came to say, you know what, let's just get everything out there. Let's have this out in the public. And he actually called the senators. I was there. He called the senators and said, you know what, pass this bill, I'll sign it. And that was it.
Well, then let me follow up briefly. Let me follow up.
Yeah, and nothing. No other conversations were had. It's just. It's just it was a pretty clear-cut thing. No muss, no fuss about it. Ignore the fact that we had to go to the Situation Room, and I had to play damage control about it for quite some time.
Briefly.
Yes.
It sounds like you believed that there would be men in the files who would be held accountable. Rightfully so. And the American people are with you on this. Why haven't we seen the release of over 2.5 million additional Epstein file documents? It seems like you are someone that is on the right side of history on this.
So we have released, I think it's 6 million files or 6 million pages of documents. My understanding is that 2.5 million.
Also worth noting, as long as we're taking a look at the Trump administration, that Howard Lutnick went and had dinner on Epstein's rape island with his children. I don't know. Seems kind of weird for this guy who really hated Jeffrey Epstein to be surrounded by Jeffrey Epstein's associates and toadies.
I'm going to check on this to make sure, but my understanding is that a lot of those are duplicates of things that have already been released.
Howard Lutnick lied about it to Congress under oath.
So then
we're not holding.
We're not
holding anything back. Some of those things are like the courts have to order you to release them. So that was one thing that we confronted. You talk about these Situation Room meetings. There's a big bunch of files that existed, I think, in the Southern District of New York.
By the way, I love that JD Vance here is just talking about this like it's totally normal for them to go down and have a Situation Room meeting about a PR disaster, about how the president might be implicated in having sex with children. JD Vance just completely downplays it, like, oh no, you go down to the Situation Room and we just had a little chat about it. And it's like, that's not normal. The Situation Room is the most secure place on earth. It is the place you go when you need to talk about things of such extreme import and need of security that you want no one possibly listening into your conversation. Like, the reason you go down there is because you've got some serious shit that you need to talk about earnestly, openly, and could have sweeping ramifications if anyone ever gains wind that you've talked about it at all. And he's just kind of glossing over that, hoping nobody really reads into the implication of what he's saying.
Maybe it was some other jurisdiction, but we were like, we want to release these files, but you need the court approval in order to release the files. Sometimes we would apply to release the files and the courts would say no. So those particular documents, I would need to actually know exactly what you're talking about.
3.5 million documents were released, and my understanding is 2.5 million have not been released.
Those may have been the ones that are under court seal. I don't know what the documents you're talking.
I'm sorry, none of them are under court seal. None of the documents anymore are under court seal. There are 2.5 million documents they have yet to release and are being held illegally with no explanation given as to why they have not yet been released.
But I'm telling you,
let me go to break.
Sure.
Let me go to break.
God, it is truly wild here. But let's jump into another part of this interview. Because honestly, the fact that the ladies on The View are asking more important and more pointed questions than the vast majority of people in the media is frankly damning. It is damning that our entire political system has degenerated to a point where the ladies on The View are asking the pointed
Vance,
questions.
Tell us about your great new book, The View, a mid-afternoon talk show for housewives. Why are you ruining the country with a pedo? State of American media folks.
Like, genuinely, like they aren't even, they are asking pointed questions, but they aren't being rude about it. They aren't being like combative about it. They're just asking good questions. Questions that more people in the mainstream media ought to have been asking for years now.
You come from a poor community.
Sure.
You know how hard it has been for people. Two things. You talk a lot about your Catholic faith, but the Catholic faith says we take in immigrants. We take in people who don't have or who are having a hard time. How do you justify both things?
So let me say first a couple things, Whoopi. So number one, the book is actually way less political than you might think if you were just watching this, because obviously we're getting into the issues of the day.
Right.
95% of the book is really not about politics. I kind of have to write about politics because I'm the vice president, but I want to answer your question.
Right.
So fundamentally, if you think about what is immigration enforcement, immigration is law enforcement. It's somebody who has broken a law enforcement officer has to show up and enforce that law. Now, inherently, sometimes that process is not always going to be pretty if you capture a video clip of it, in the same way that if you arrest somebody for...
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty, guys. It's not going to be like visually beautiful, but it's going to be ultimately the right thing to do. Anyway.
For the first time since celebrating his inaugural Mass, the American Pope from Chicago weighing in on U.S. politics. Pope Leo seeming to criticize the Trump administration over the president's immigration policies.
Someone who says that I'm against abortion, but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States. I don't know if that's pro-life. So they're very complex issues. I don't know if anyone has all the truth on them, but I would ask first and foremost that there be greater respect for one another.
The rare remarks coming after his predecessor, Pope Francis, also slammed the president's crackdown on illegal immigration. Tonight, the White House pushing back on Pope Leo's comments.
You've been very open about your Catholic faith. How do you respond to that?
I would reject there is inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the United States under this administration. There was, however, significant inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the previous administration as they were being trafficked and raped and beaten, and in many cases killed.
Yeah, as we all know, the Trump administration's policies is very concerned with the mistreatment of undocumented immigrants, which is why, so many people die in ICE custody. It's just, they're so concerned. They get hugged to death in custody.
Over our United States southern border.
Pope Leo also said President Trump's rebranding of the Department of Defense to the Department of War was concerning. But he did show support for the president's proposed peace plan for Gaza, calling it realistic and saying he hoped it would be accepted.
Anyway, this is from last year. Let's check back in with Pope Leo. How are things going right now? This is from 4 days ago. All of us are migrants, Pope says in Canary Islands as Spain trip wraps up. All of us are migrants on the final day of a week-long visit to Spain focused on the plight of irregular immigrants, also known as undocumented immigrants. How strange. How bizarre. It's almost like J.D. Vance's position is not really compatible with the faith he professes to believe so deeply that he wrote an entire fucking book about it. Named, by the way, after a deeply religious Catholic act, communion.
Committing a violent or a nonviolent crime. Sometimes it's not always pretty. What I'm saying is the Catholic faith is actually I think it strikes the right balance here. It says the Christian faith, I think this is true of Protestants and Catholics, that you can have borders.
Yeah.
You're allowed to enforce your borders. That means the law enforcement piece of it. But you also have to take certain precautions and certain care, okay? And again, your argument is fundamentally...
And has the United States been doing that? Let's take a look at the for-profit ICE detention centers that are being built by for-profit companies, being given government contracts worth billions of dollars, sight unseen, who have then gone on to build torture camps in the middle of the Florida Everglades. Or let's check in with some of the other ICE containment facilities that were deliberately denied funding for immigration judges so as to be able to keep undocumented immigrants in custody indefinitely on the taxpayer dime, as a gigantic handout to these for-profit corporations that run these prison facilities. Or let's take a look at the fact that many of these prison facilities were built with contracts in place to do forced labor for the people who are incarcerated within those facilities. So let's just summarize here. In the United States, we have set up a formalized system now where the U.S. government gives out taxpayer money to corporations who are then allowed to enslave the people who are being held without cause, without legal representation, indefinitely. That is the system that J.D. Vance is talking about being humane and not in conflict with his religious beliefs. While you just saw the Pope, the leader of his faith, explicitly say, that's not right.
Whoopi, you're saying that we don't strike the right balance. I disagree with you about how we apply that, but nobody hopefully is saying we're not allowed to have a border.
No,
what
sir.
I'm saying is that in order for us to actually enforce the law, you can't set a standard that says you're not allowed to deport anyone unless they've committed a violent crime. You've got to enforce.
The idea that that is what the standard is bizarre, because that's not what the standard is.
The law equally.
So let me do my follow-up.
He's fully constructed a straw man that no one, I know that MAGA loves to pretend like all of these ladies are ultra leftists or whatever, but none of them have made this claim. J.D. Vance just pulled an entire scarecrow out of his ass. It's crazy.
Let me do my follow-up.
Yes, I do.
Because you were talking about people. What did black people do to this administration that has allowed it to really stigmatize folks of color? And you know how hard it is. You have folks of color in your family.
Sure.
So when you see, things, the Emmett Till stuff coming down, or them doing all kinds of removal of information of black heroes, how does that sit with you?
Well, what do you mean?
Well, let's be very clear. J.D. Vance is a white nationalist. One of the things you see, because there have now been multiple drops from this Maggie Haberman book that's coming called Regime Change, by Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Snow, rather. They also have a drop related to Iran, and also published by the New York Times. And in it, they talk about how J.D. Vance is maybe second only to Stephen Miller in terms of people who wanted, when they looked at Minneapolis and the protests that were going on here related to ICE, J.D. Vance was rabidly in favor of issuing the Insurrection Act by rolling that out and empowering the military to roll in and put down any protests, and up to and including killing American citizens on the street. Oh, was it Jonathan Swan? My bad. Thank you for the correction. Had to be epic. J.D. Vance, we've known for a while now, you can look at his Twitter. He follows a shit ton of neo-Nazis. He follows a shit ton of white supremacists. It's not, I'm not exaggerating here. A lot of the guys he follows are genuinely indistinguishable from the KKK. And it is, I think, putting him a bit on the spot here to ask him, how do you justify removing Black history? Because, genuinely, he's just in favor of it on principle. On the principle of the thing, he is in favor of disempowering African Americans and empowering, whiteness as he sees it.
What exactly are you talking about, Whoopi? Because you just,
I know
Emmett Till was
I
the
can tell you all
kid.
this. Yeah.
No, I want to know what she's.
You don't know what I'm
respond
talking
to your
about.
actual point.
So in a lot of the museums, there's so many. Where they're taking down the actual history that happened in this country. Slavery happened. All kinds of stuff happened. And it seems that it has been very easy for this administration to remove that and also to denigrate.
As an example of what she's talking about, here's an NPR piece from 2 days ago. Fate of historic slavery exhibit targeted by Trump hangs in the balance. Last week, a federal judge temporarily blocked his year-old executive order titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. It ordered the Interior Secretary to remove from national parks and historic sites content that inappropriately disparages Americans past or living. Months later, federal employees took crowbars and peeled away an exhibit about 9 African Americans President George Washington had enslaved at the nation's first executive mansion in Philadelphia. And this battle is still ongoing, right? This is part of what Whoopi Goldberg here is talking about. Like, it's hardly limited to just this one. There has been an ongoing effort here. Center for American Progress, for example, brings this up. The Trump administration continues to corrupt the public record and whitewash the history of this country through a multi-pronged strategy that includes purging diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, pushing for changes in school curricula, censoring museum exhibits. Let's take a look at what that one says. See, White House announces comprehensive review of Smithsonian exhibitions. Let's see. Trump administration giving museums 120 days to replace divisive or ideologically driven language with unifying, historically accurate, constructive descriptions. Which, by the way, includes, again, the National Museum of African American History here in D.C. The review, which will begin with 8 of the Smithsonian's 21 museums, is the latest attempt by President Trump to try and impose his will on the Smithsonian, which has traditionally operated as an independent institution that regards itself outside the purview of the executive branch. In its letter, the White House says its review aims to ensure alignment with the president's directive to celebrate American exceptionalism, remove divisive or partisan narratives, and restore confidence in our shared cultural institutions. The goal is not to interfere with day-to-day operations.
Trump has as a pet, rat emoji.
Indeed, 2D Synctium. Goddamn. Thank you for the $50 dono. Very, very generous. I very much appreciate it. The goal is not to interfere with day-to-day operations of curators or staff, but rather to support a broader vision of excellence that highlights historically accurate, uplifting, and inclusive portrayals of America's heritage. News of the letter earlier reported by the Wall Street Journal, signed by Lindsay Halligan, a special assistant to the president. Yeah, again, it references restoring truth and sanity to American history. In the executive order, he claimed that the Smithsonian had come under the influence of a divisive, race-centered ideology, and it promoted narratives that portray American and Western values as inherently harmful and oppressive. Interestingly, the 8 that museums that the White House wants to review initially were the National Museum of American History, the National Museum of Natural History, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the National Museum of the American Indian, the National Air and Space Museum, the Smithsonian American Art Museum, and the National Portrait Gallery, and the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden. Very interesting which exhibits got the most scrutiny there. Spoiler alert, it was the exhibits that had to do with slavery and African Americans. Not that difficult to figure out. I don't know. Seems really dishonest to try and dodge that question by basically saying, oh, no. He's not taking aim at any of these historical exhibits.
Black folks who have worked their behinds off to get this American dream. How do you, I mean, you know better.
Sonny, that was actually a very helpful intervention, because I think the story you're talking about is where, allegedly the administration is holding back the appointments of people based on skin color. I've seen this story.
I'm talking about a host of things. I'm talking about Black history getting erased from public spaces. Black voter districts are being dismantled. Black leaders are being sidelined from our ranks. Where do Americans of color fit in this vision? Because it doesn't seem like we fit.
I think, Sonny, my view,
And if I may, since October of last year, there's been something like 6,668 refugees allowed into the country. All but 3 were white South Africans.
So, first of all, I'm very skeptical of that number, because we have a lot of different immigration pathways in the United States.
that number is from the US government. Like, the fact that he can't even admit what the US government is doing, like, just to be clear, the View ladies are right here. They are correct. Like an obscene percentage of the people who've been allowed to come into this country have been white South Africans, all of which is predicated on this racist idea that there is some kind of anti-white genocide happening in South Africa. An idea that is not substantiated in any way, shape, or form. It's pushed by racists in order to try and facilitate racial violence in South Africa.
When did The View become the most pointed news team these days?
Genuinely, it is a baffling state of affairs, isn't it, Anime Sidekick Gal? Thank you for the $10 dono. Very much appreciated.
America. But let me just address Whoopi's point. Look, first of all, you asked the question, and maybe you don't believe this coming from me, but I think everybody is welcome in our political coalition. Frankly, even if you didn't vote for us, everybody is welcome in our country so long as you're an American citizen with the duties and the legal obligations and rights to be here. But what we
Everyone is welcome except for undocumented immigrants. Just want to remind you guys, being an undocumented immigrant is a civil offense, right? It is on par with getting a parking ticket. And the easiest solution is just have them pay a fine and document them. That's it. The same way when you get a parking ticket, you pay a fine and it gets documented. That's the only thing that's required in this case to fix our immigration system. That's it. That's all you got to do. Being here in an undocumented fashion, the only crime is the lack of documentation. We can far more easily fix a lack of documentation by issuing documentation. The same way if you lose your driver's license, we can just simply print out a new one and send it to you. It's way easier than forcing you to take an entire new driver's test to reaffirm your ability to drive. We could just send it to you again, redocument you. And so and maybe you pay a fine because you lost it. Like, it's not difficult to do. Which is more difficult, chat? Holding people incarcerated for months, if not years at a time, going through the expense of trying to catch them like they're fucking animals, and then getting them a plane ticket to another country? Or, and just hear me out here, issuing a bit of paper. Which of those two options is more expensive? Which of those options is less expensive and more humane? It's really not that difficult. It's very obviously just sending people a scrap of paper and charging them a fine. The same way an officer leaves a scrap of paper that charges you a fine on your car.
Back trombone champ. La 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 bomba. Fudge that fudger vange.
No, Trombone Champ is only a December activity. I'm sorry. You will just have to wait. But thank you for the $5 super chat.
Let me just give you an example of this. Okay, so you say that we're anti-minority or anti-black.
No, I didn't say that. I asked. See?
Well, okay, fine. Be fair.
Don't start any stuff
All
with
right,
me,
okay,
man.
all
Don't
right.
get me in trouble. Don't start no stuff with me. But
I love that he smiles and fake laughs as if he's in on the joke when he's very clearly not.
I misinterpreted your question,
That's
but
all right.
let me answer your actual question there. What I'm saying, I
Expensive versus your children's safety. Hey, fun fact. Undocumented immigrants commit less crimes in the United States than U.S. citizens. The idea that your children are more at risk around undocumented immigrants is simply not founded by any of the data. Your children are actually safer around undocumented immigrants, just as an FYI. It takes multiple generations within the United States for that level of criminality to reach the same level as native-born American citizens. So, just as an FYI, that argument is bullshit.
think, okay, look at Washington, D.C. one of the most democratic and one of the blackest, by a share of population, blackest cities in the United States of America, has seen a radical decrease in violent crimes and sexual assaults and in murders. We have tried to take the crime issue seriously, in part because we believe everybody, whether you're black or white or rich or poor, deserves to live in a safe neighborhood.
Why does the crime? Where does the crime step in? This is not about crime. This is about
women lost their jobs.
Right. This is about human
Sonny,
rights.
what you're saying is
Black
we got to do more on the economy.
Black history has been
Sonny,
erased from public spaces.
Black history is not erased from public spaces.
We do have to get to a
They are literally taking down exhibits about Black history from public spaces. There's an executive order about it. How can you nod and be like, they're not doing that, when there's literally an executive order to make that happen? But also, let's just take a quick look, because I know some people were asking about undocumented immigrants and crime statistics. Here's from the American Immigration Council. The American Immigration Council compared crime data to demographic data from 1980 to 2022, the most recent data available. The data showed that as the immigrant share of the population grew, the crime rate declined. In 1980, immigrants made up 6.2% of the U.S. population, and the total crime rate was 5,900 crimes per 100,000 people. By 2022, the share of immigrants had more than doubled to 13.9%, while the total crime rate had dropped by 60.4% to 2,335 crimes per 100,000 people. Specifically, the violent crime rate fell by 34.5%, and the property crime rate fell by 63.3%. Which is the opposite of what you would expect to find if more immigration meant more crime.
When we get back, there's some very important news to
I'm telling you, we celebrate Black history. We celebrate all American history in this administration. You guys might be skeptical of this, but I promise you it's true.
Now, I do want to also point out here, if you're like, well, I mean, that was only until 2022. Now, this is a paper. Law-abiding immigrants, the incarceration gap between immigrants and the U.S. born from 1870 to 2020. Now, what this paper finds, published, by the way, in 2023 and revised in 2024, is that immigrants are less likely to commit crimes and to be incarcerated by about 60%. 60%, like immigrants are 60% less likely to commit crimes compared to native-born people in the United States. And undocumented immigrants are 37.1% less likely to be convicted of a crime. That was done by the Cato Institute. These are not just isolated studies. These are the bulk of studies on criminality in both the documented and undocumented communities of immigrants. So this idea that, oh, well, you know, we just really care about safety. No, you don't. If you cared about safety, you would have actually looked this up. You would have actually given a shit. You would have actually looked up the numbers and realized, oh, wait, my position that I really care about safety and that's why I hate immigrants is actually the result of a bunch of fear-mongering from Fox News. But, you know, Republicans, MAGA, not very prone to reading and actually fact-checking their beliefs. But Jack, did you consider that racists don't care? I had considered it, and that does seem to be the case. We have one more part with JD Vance here. Let's check it out.
Mr. Vice President, in your new book, Communion, you write about your personal evolution with faith from evangelical to atheist to Catholic convert. And you also explain your evolution similarly on Trump, from calling him America's Hitler to America's best hope. Now, as someone who has admitted to chasing ambition, which you write about in the book in the past, but now says your faith brought you back to your priorities, I have to kind of use your own words that sit with me from 2016.
Sure.
Fellow Christians, everyone is watching when we apologize for this man. Lord, help us. And I think about that all the time because as a fellow Christian, that is something that weighs on my heart as I watch this country and the leadership at the top, because it's also something I have to explain to my kids, which I know we also share, this idea that our greatest privilege and responsibility are these young people we're raising.
Of course.
So help me find the words to explain to my children what they're witnessing right now.
Well, first of all, it's been well covered that I was a critic of Donald Trump back in 2015 and 2016. Now, obviously, I'm sitting here as the Vice President of the United States in the Trump administration.
Like, I want them to quote him to him. Like, you called Donald Trump Hitler. Like, J.D. Vance literally called Donald Trump Hitler in writing. It's on Twitter.
Well, Joy, a little humility, actually. I think that when you make predictions and those predictions turn out to be false, you got to ask yourself, well, what made me wrong about that? What did I not understand or not appreciate? For example, I said that Donald Trump's economic policies would not lead to wage growth. They did in the first term. That was actually a major, major thing. I said that we couldn't bring back any of those factory
But
jobs.
have we determined if their sexuality has led to increased potential crime rates? Hashtag be gay do crime.
Sake Tanuki, don't give them ideas. Don't give them ideas. They're going to be like, yes, LGBTQ people. The original mobsters.
Kind of had given into this idea that those jobs were disappearing, but actually Donald Trump, you saw a manufacturing boom during that administration.
So there's a certain point.
Let me just this question. So there's a certain point where you say, I made predictions about this. I ended up being wrong. Yeah. And in politics and anything, I think it's important to just say, you know what? I got some things wrong, and I was wrong about him. He was a very successful president. It's one of the reasons why I've been so supportive of him.
You go on in the book to explain that good policy was maybe one of your justifications, but the quote, and when you tweet...
But have you considered that all of Donald Trump's policies have been bad? How do you explain that?
Did that or X'd it was not about policy. It was what Christians were willing to excuse. And that's the part I can't get past. What are you willing to excuse in the name of power?
Well,
J.D. Vance will literally do whatever it takes for him to get more power. Like, that's the scariest part about him. Like, I think he's completely defanged by the fact that he has absolutely no charisma whatsoever. Like, he has no ability to actually connect with voters on a mass scale whatsoever. But, like, the scariest part about him is that he is willing to do literally absolutely anything in order to get power. Like, he's literally working with the guy he considered Hitler just a couple years ago.
I would say fundamentally that one of the things I underappreciated about Donald Trump...
How did he ever win Ohio? With a bunch of Peter Thiel's money.
...is that so many of the things that people said about him weren't actually true. Again, you talk about humility. Okay, so
Cedar's trees. Is that a reference to Sam Cedar? If not, that's fine. Do you think J.D. Vance or anyone else has the charisma or momentum to capture the MAGA base after Trump dies? No. There is no successor to the MAGA cult. Like, there isn't a cult leader to succeed Donald Trump. Like, no one else has his weird magnetism and not recognizable flair or entertainment value to the MAGA base. No one else has that. There's a reason why midterm off-year elections go terribly for conservatives when Donald Trump is around, because they don't turn out to the polls unless Donald Trump is on the ballot. And so I think a huge existential-sized problem for them is what happens in 2028. And I think that's why increasingly as we go forward, you're going to start seeing more and more Republicans in and throughout Congress freaking the fuck out. And I know that J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio are basically going to be the two guys duking it out in the primary for 2028. But I don't think either of them have the charisma to be able to replace Trump. Neither of them can do it. They have nothing to offer conservative voters anymore. There is nothing entertaining about either of them. They're both sullen, boring, abysmally risless fools. And that's a huge problem, because while Donald Trump is stupid and a fool, he's also entertaining. There's an element of like a circus ringmaster to him, where MAGA folks turn out and they're like, he's doing the bit. We love it when he does the bit. No one else has that. When JD Vance shows up on to different like talks, no one in MAGA gives a shit. And that's a big problem. When Marco Rubio shows up to give a talk at an event, nobody gives a shit except for politically brain poisoned people like me, who's like, I want to see how Marco Rubio gets treated in this situation and how JD Vance gets treated in this position. You know, like, if you're here and you're watching this, you are not indicative of where, even if you're watching this and you're MAGA, you are not indicative of how much other MAGA people are keyed into what is happening with MAGA. If you're here and you are a liberal or a leftist, which is far more likely, you are far more keyed in than your average liberal or leftist is to American politics at the moment. Like, that's going to be a big problem when Donald Trump goes. Like, there's no one else that is capable of picking up this flame, with one exception, which is maybe Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson might be able to do that, but so far hasn't really been taking moves that indicate to me that he is going to announce that he's running in the general, which is a bit of a relief. But if he does announce, that's the one person I would genuinely be worried about entering into the political sphere. So that's my take on it. You're so disgusting. Trust me, the disgust is mutual.
See Donald Trump, I see a clip of him, or I see not even a clip of him, but reporting about something that he said, and I take it at face value. For example, let's just go back to one of the most controversial things Donald Trump said during the first term that I was wrong during the first campaign, is that I was led to believe by the stories. I read stories that said Donald Trump said that all Mexicans were rapists. He never said that. What he said is that the certain South American countries, Central American countries, were releasing criminals into our country, including Mexico. By the way, that was objectively true. So it's not so much Christians.
Fidel Castro did that in 1980 with the Mariel boat lift. There have been many, many journalists, including CNN, where you used to work and be my colleague, that have tried to find evidence.
Oh shit, I forgot that JD Vance worked for CNN. Oh my God, Jesus.
Of that. There is no evidence that Maduro was releasing people from insane asylums or jails like Fidel.
Wait, is it okay to ask why you're not afraid of Nick? Nick Fuentes does not have the kind of viewership or sway within the Republican Party proper to be able to do a damn thing.
Castro did do. This was made up, and we just can't,
also, Nick Fuentes is a baby. I don't think he's even old enough to try to run.
Accept it without pushing back.
Anna, we know that there were people who were released from prisons who were encouraged to come into the United States.
It wasn't like it wasn't the Mariel, Mr. Vice President. It wasn't where it was like a purposeful release, open up the jails, open up the insane asylums, and let people flood Florida. I lived through that in Miami.
If you go, it may not have been like Mariel, but if you go back to the caravans that were happening in 22, 23, we know that those things were funded. They were in some ways supported by the government.
There was absolutely
so I don't know how you define support or not support, but if people are encouraged to come into our country after having spent time in prison by their own governments, I think that's a problem.
Well, Vice President, can I just add one more thing? Because you do speak about immigration.
The vast majority of undocumented immigrants in this country are not former criminals. Like, that's not like this is already a lie.
At length in this book.
Sure.
And I believe
again, we are literally seeing JD Vance right now fabricate the same caravan conspiracy that was pushed in the lead up to like the 2020 election, and in the lead up to the 2016 election, and in the lead up to the 2024 election. Every time an election is on the horizon, Republicans start talking about these caravans. They're coming into our country. They're sneaking in. And it's just like, okay. And yet, we aren't seeing these massive crime bumps that you would expect if all of these caravans were coming into the United States. It's weird, isn't it? None of the statistics, none of the data we get from actually incarcerated immigrants at all winds up validating what they're saying.
Christian, I can tell my kids why it's important to have borders. I get that. There are laws, there are resources, I get all that things. It's much harder to explain when I see someone dragged out of a house or wrongly taken to a thing that isn't a violent criminal. That is.
I do have to say, I love Vance's face right here. This is a top tier screen grab. He looks like he actually took damage. Like, which is the case. Like, I live in Minneapolis. When ICE was here in full force, there were masked men literally wandering around the streets, pulling people out of their houses, pulling grandparents out of their houses, leaving screaming, crying kids wailing on the sidewalk. There were like masked men who shot and killed people blocks away from where I live. It was utter insanity on a day-to-day basis, on an hour-to-hour basis. There were attacks on the streets where these men would just randomly see somebody who was non-white and they would try and chase him down. They would shoot at him. They would like deploy chemical munitions at people that they, or even businesses that they thought were just too resistant to them. There was on camera ICE agents who showed up at a local pizza shop that had given out free pizzas to undocumented immigrants who were hiding in their apartments. On video, these ICE pigs ran up to the business to try and open the door and throw tear gas in there. They tried to gas an entire business. And luckily, they were so fucking stupid, they ran up to a very clearly locked door to try and open it. And when people started seeing what they were doing, they all started saying, hey, that's fucked up. And then those pigs got real fucking scared, jumped back into their car, and threw these gas canisters directly into the middle of a busy intersection where cars were trying to move back and forth. And they put the general public at risk. Like, that was happening on a near daily basis, and that's just one incident captured on camera. Not to mention what they did to Alex Preddy, not to mention what they did to Renee Good. Like, these are absolutely unforgivable. And the level, like, I know Minnesota and Minneapolis, we are known for being kind. We are known for being patient. We are known for being hospitable, possibly to a fault. But do not mistake that for weakness, because the level of rage and the memory of people here is quite fucking long. We will not forget what happened, and we will not be so easily subdued next time. And don't make no mistake, folks like JD Vance absolutely want there to be a next time. JD Vance wants there to be martial law, wants there to be blood in the streets, and wants there to be an honest-to-God fight. And he's going to look for it if he ever gets power. And still y'all didn't revolt? You let them get away with it? Hey, nothing's stopping you from throwing yourself on some kind of sacrificial altar for your crusade, okay? Literally nothing's stopping you. If you want to go and sacrifice yourself and commit suicide by cop, that is an option that is available to you. But like, trying to find fault in the people of a city who are trying to keep themselves and their loved ones safe and their communities safe, that's something deeply fucked up and wrong with you. Okay? If you have a problem with the tactics taken here in Minneapolis and they weren't extreme enough for your tastes, you go do your own shit.
It's a little more nuanced as a parent to try to say when someone's referred to as vermin or something.
It's really fucking easy to say you should have died to ICE guns when you don't have kids, when you're not trying to keep your neighbors safe. It's really fucking easy to be real fucking edgy when it costs you nothing.
When I teach them in school about people that have done that before, but this—
Safe from what? Safe from fucking masked goons coming in, breaking down doors without a warrant, and stealing people away in the night. Fuck, we haven't even talked about like the Starlight tours that ICE would put people on. They would abduct people, sometimes full US citizens, who just were non-white. And when they found out, oh, you're a US citizen, they would drop them shivering in negative 40-degree cold in the middle of nowhere and basically say, good luck, and drive off and leave them to possibly die. People froze to death last winter because of that. People fucking died.
is different. It's very hard as a parent and a Christian to say both things.
And you actually say in the book, you talk about this, struggle, this internal struggle in the book, and you talk about moral trade-offs that result in favoring a strict migration policy without dehumanizing anyone. But listen, over 50 people have died in ICE custody. There are thousands of children, 6,200, that are being held in places like Dilley Detention Center. The people that have visited those detention centers, I don't know if you have, talk about the subhuman, infrahuman conditions, the lack of clean water, the lack of medical attention, the lack of education. I would urge you as a Christian and as a father.
Lol, making shit up, it's so bad. Literally, there had to be people placed outside of the Dilley detention facility in Minnesota because ICE was releasing people without winter clothing into sub-zero conditions. Shut the fuck up. I saw it with my own eyes. Like, get the fuck out of here.
To visit those detention centers where the children are being held and make sure that the conditions are up to the values that we hold in this country.
So you guys have thrown a lot at me, and I see we got 30 seconds left here. But let me say,
You're
number
the Vice
one,
President, you can go long.
I'd like to pick up on this theme because I think it's really important. We do have to strike a balance, of course, between enforcing our laws. We don't want to dehumanize people. That is the balance that, look, law enforcement, what I'd say about this, law enforcement is always inherently not a very pretty process, especially when you're dealing sometimes with violent people, with people who are resisting arrest. Some of the people that I've been told by the media were completely peaceful, had never violated any laws. You actually look into the record and you find out that those people were actually being violent, or they did have a criminal record. They had a sex trafficking conviction.
Don't have criminal records. So the majority of people that ICE is rounding up and taking out of their homes from their families, they're separating families. They're using children as bait.
But
the majority are not criminals.
But can I respond to that, guys? Let me just say this. Okay. So you talk about the children. Here's what I'd say. Do we know that during the last administration, we had tens of thousands of children?
Oh, here we go. Here's a piece from The Guardian. U.S. citizen says ICE forced him from his home without clothes in sub-freezing weather. This happened not infrequently. Yeah, Chung Lee Scott Thao. I was shaking. They didn't show any warrant. They just broke down the door. They pointed guns at my family. But no, of course, they only allow for the best and most humane of conditions, of course. Surely the federal government wouldn't do something wrong. I must lick their boots.
Who were sex trafficked by the cartels, who were brought into our country in profoundly dangerous and predatory conditions.
Let's talk about this administration.
But here's the point. Unless you enforce the border, you invite that kind of conduct. You think that our immigration policies are inhumane based on the report.
Literally, I knew so many people who are not white, who had to have their citizenship documents on them. Specifically, even if they were naturally born citizens of the United States, they got their birth certificates to carry around with them in case ICE stopped them, because that was happening so frequently. Indigenous people in the city were having to carry their tribal IDs on them because, again, anyone who is non-white was getting stopped by ICE. BS? Not BS. It's truth. I was there. Man, I was there.
Reporting of one person with a political bias. What I'm telling you is that it's inhumane to allow cartels to sex traffic people across our border.
And by the way, please hold on.
I appreciate that.
God, it's truly deranged. It's truly fucking deranged. Here's an interview with some protesters on the ground. This is from 5 months ago.
My name's Jack. We're just trying to help pick up some released detainees. You know, they're left out in the cold, and get them some supplies, get them home, whatever they need. So.
Cool, thank you.
It was nice to meet you, Doc.
Do they come out here?
Yeah.
When they release them?
Yeah, we got, a whole little system. We're kind of got, whatever you call these.
Do you know when they're going to let them out?
We don't know when. Yeah.
And they just walk out?
They just drop them out. I'm looking for somebody with a jail bag, and then we go and help out.
Do they even have it's freezing today?
What I'm told is they've been taken, no, they don't have the right clothes, so in some ways, ICE should be thanking us, because that's like another type of murder, throw them out in this weather, you don't last very long, so. But basically, I'm told they've been taking IDs if they're brown, and then also phones no matter what. So we try to get them burner phones, things like that, get them a ride, whatever they need. So
what do you think of these tactics?
It's just, it doesn't feel right, man. I don't. How do you? I don't even want to entertain an argument. It's just like you think about these kind of two-way fetish people. Here's your moment. This isn't small government. I know that. So it's just hard to stomach. That's all.
Thank you for the work you're doing. How many people have you helped so far?
So this is my first day. I just started a new job. I get 2 days off a week, 2:30 to 11 p.m. So when I'm off, I'm going to be here. I just learned of this group that's kind of doing some meaningful stuff and do my part a little bit.
Why get involved?
It's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful country in a lot of ways, and I just don't see us staying that way unless people stand up.
Yeah, it's a cold day. You could be on your couch watching a football game, your feet up.
That's exactly what I'd be doing, to be honest. But it's who else is going to do it? At this point, it's not the police. We need the people.
What's your name again?
Jack.
Jack.
Yes.
Come here, brother.
Yes. I appreciate you.
That's what people need to do, man. You're amazing. That's what people do. Oh, this really upsets you. Why?
It's you don't want people to die. You don't want. That's a tough one for me. But it just seems so clear. It's not right. It used to be like, oh, you're going too far with these Nazi references. Now it's like, how do you not make those comparisons? I don't know. I used to try to stay away from that. It escalates things, but it's just a trip looking out here. I don't know. I don't know how to take it in, stomach it, the whole deal. So.
Well, you're doing, but you have to be willing to sacrifice something, and you are.
Yes,
so
and your reporting has a lot of meaning too.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate
God bless you. Thank you.
And, this isn't an isolated incident. Here's another video. This is from 5 months ago of ICE releasing a protester from the Whipple building in sub-zero temperatures. That is below 0 degrees. So here you go. Yeah, he's not wearing cold weather gear at all. If there was no one there to pick him up, he would have died. The Starlight Tours thing is an ongoing issue, right? Like, for example, this is not just, isolated to Minnesota. It's not just isolated to, what was going on in Minneapolis during ICE occupation, right? Like, this is a pattern that ICE has adopted, largely seemingly based upon like the Canadian model from the RCMP, where they typically with like indigenous folks take them into custody and then drop them in the middle of nowhere. And like this has been an ongoing thing that ICE has been doing, not just in Minneapolis and not just in Minnesota, but elsewhere around the country as well. Like it isn't something I'm pulling out of my ass. This has been a recurring problem. I just want y'all to know it's real. And when JD Vance goes to bat to try and whitewash these things as if, well, they're just not pretty. Like it's not just that it's not pretty, right? It's cruel. It's killing people. And every single MAGA individual on the internet is totally okay with it. Until it starts happening to them and the people they care about. And by the way, it does start happening to them. It started happening to MAGA folks here in Minnesota, which is how you got Republicans, organizing alongside folks on the left when ICE started occupying Minneapolis. It's how you also start seeing MAGA resistance to ICE when ICE begins operating outside of the urban areas of a state. Because what happened here in Minnesota was once they met significant resistance in Minneapolis and the surrounding area, they started operating more and more in rural townships and areas. And what wound up happening is surprise, surprise, they kept on pulling over American citizens who were just non-white, but in the middle of nowhere. And so suddenly people would just start going missing from tight-knit rural communities. And guess what? People fucking hate that. It doesn't matter if you're MAGA or if you are a liberal or if you're a socialist. It doesn't matter, because people hate it when their neighbors start disappearing. So it is truly a problem, but like a lot of MAGA folks, they just won't recognize the problem until it starts affecting them. And, you know, that isn't unique to just ICE occupation. It happens when it comes to climate change. It happens when it comes to AI data centers. It happens when it comes to a lot of different things. But the only solution for the kind of predicament we found ourselves in as a country is to organize. It's to organize people of conscience, join your local Democratic Party, make it a party for the working class in this country. You know, kick out those people who've been bought by corporations, kick out those people who've been bought by lobbyists or foreign governments, kick those people out. Make the party actually work for working people. And join your local DSA. Make them more effective at organizing working people in your community. Make them more like the New York City DSA, that it can actually flex its organizing muscle and provide something of value to the political conversation in the local area, right? We can make that happen, but we need more people to actually give a shit and get involved. Because it's fairly easy to pretend to give a shit online. It's a lot harder to actually put that into action, right? If you need help taking those first steps, if you need help figuring out where your local Democrats meet, where your local DSA meets, or don't really know how to get started with that, we can help you. Join our Discord, reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems, reach out to GamerG for help with your local DSA. They have years and years of experience pushing both DSA to be more effective, as well as Democrats to be more progressive and pro-working class. It is incredible what a handful of dedicated individuals can do to unfuck our political system. But it does take effort, and it does take people showing up to goddamn meetings. And I know it's not sexy or flashy, but that is what it takes. So please do so if you are at all inclined. Give it a shot. It is worth trying. And if you would prefer to do door knocking, phone banking, text banking, and want to get plugged directly into leftist campaigns across the country, consider joining Progressive Victory. There's a link to them down below, and you can help out in a wide variety of different campaigns everywhere. You know, you can phone bank for anybody. You can text bank for anybody. You can help do research for anybody. You can actually make a really good go of changing our political system when you organize alongside like-minded people. So all of that being said, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the hard-hitting journalism from The View and how it compares to the mainstream these days. And also, do consider checking out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes, also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. It is comfortable, sexy, non-tucking lingerie. Check it out, ImogeneOlivia.com. Link down in the doobly-doo. Let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.